Namaskar. This is Professor Aman Agarwal from Indian Institute of Finance, and I bring before you another webinar on the essence of life and growth. I'm very happy to welcome another guest today, a very dear friend of mine, a family member from all the way from Europe to have joined us today. And as you might have seen her beautiful green cap African dress photograph in the announcement, uh, we will be introducing her. She's Anna Burylo, but I call her, her full first name is Anna, but I call her Anya as a family member of hers. In fact, I've been quite close, and I'll open up that a little later. But as I said, I would like to first give the disclaimers. We are very happy to welcome her, and we are conducting this Zoom meeting in accordance with the Ministry of Home Affairs guidelines for conducting Zoom meetings at a secure platform. The other thing which I would like to say, that the views expressed here at the meeting are views of persons, of individuals, and have no bearing on the institutions or organizations we represent. Neither it is a bearing for Anya, who is working for the European Union in the African Union office, and it is neither for me, for the Indian Institute of Finance. These views which are going to be expressed here are personal views and must be taken in personal capacity only. Thirdly, we will be keeping all the audios and videos off throughout this session. We will be, after my interview session is over with Anya, I will be opening up the question answers for people who want to ask questions, and we will open the videos at that time for the questions to be asked, and you're welcome to ask the questions we have. So the session would be for about 45 minutes, maximum to an hour. We will try and restrain it to within the time limit frames we have, depending on how the sequence goes. Before, as I said, now I would like to introduce Anya. Anya is a family member for me. I was her best man in a marriage, and she has been close. We have known each other for good over 20 years now. And she has been in almost all family functions we have had in the family. Wherever she was, in any other part of the world she has always been there with us as a family member. And so we feel proud of her, and we know each other very well. I would be introducing her. As I said, she is currently working for the European Union as the Deputy Ambassador of the European Union to the African Union in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Please understand, the African Union is like the European Union, which is a union of all African countries, which has been created, and she, representing the European Union, which is again the integration of all Europe as taken as one. She is representing the whole Europe to Africa through the European Union. She is engaged with large number of projects, and hopefully we will hear what she does in a few moments in this beautiful zone called Africa. I've had the pleasure of being in Africa for good 3.5 years of my life as a young child. I was based in Nigeria for about 3 years, way back in 1980 to 1982 to 1985, 86. So almost for 4 years I was there. I studied there as a student. I lived there as a student, as a young child, as a young mind, and I have very beautiful memories of Africa. And hopefully soon I would visit her and her husband in Ethiopia and Zambia, where they're based. And it would be such a pleasure. Prior to her assignment, current assignment with the European Union, she has been working for the European Commission in Belgium, in Brussels, and she has had a long stint for doing large number of assignments for the European Commission, traveling all over the world for those assignments. So she comes with a lot of experience and knowledge, but as I said, we are not discussing business here. We are not discussing current scenario or COVID, but what we are discussing is the essence of life and growth. And I would request, before I begin my interview, Anya, I would request if you could actually throw some light on your own lifespan. You know, I personally feel that people who have lived about 30, 40, 45 years, 50 years, they have seen ups and downs in personal life, in work life, in domestic markets, in global markets. And that's why we wanted to bring in the positivity of understanding life and growth, their perceptions to it. But as I said, before we begin, I would like if you can give some highlight of how you think your life has changed every decade, from a young girl of 7, 8, 9 years of age to a teen girl, to a girl who went to college, then who went to university, then who started working, and then moved into a married life, and then moved forward. So, you know, life understanding or appreciating life and the way things have grown for you. If you can give maybe about 5 minutes or so, a reflection on your own life and growth from the young Anya to the beautiful young Anya today.
Thank you very much, Aman, for this rich and friendly introduction. So, and I would like to welcome all of you. I don't know where you are based, but actually I'm sending you my best wishes from Addis Ababa, from the capital of Africa, of the African Union, just one day after the Africa Day that we celebrated here in Addis Ababa on the 25th of May. And it's a quite important day. It's a day of the freedom of the African continent, the day when the integration agenda in Africa started. So if some of you are coming from Africa or are associated with Africa, I wish you all a happy Africa Day. So thank you again, Aman. And you asked me immediately a few personal questions that I would be happy to share with you. A bit of reflection going back to the past. So I would say I see three main stages of my life, of my development, of my growth. So the first one is the childhood. The second one is when I started my adolescence life and when I started my university studies. And then I think the third stage is my professional life. And of course, all these three parts, three paths are somehow interconnected. And of course, I collected some useful life experience during this time. So for the first part of my experience so far, my childhood, just to let you know that I'm coming from Poland, from Europe. And I grew up in the eastern part of my country, which borders with Lithuania and Belarus. So I grew up in a little town and I went to a local school. And it was not so easy time in Poland, especially when I started my primary school. It was in the 80s. It was the time when the Solidarity movement was born and Poland experienced a big economic crisis during that time. And also political crisis, as you may know from the European history. And during that time, I invested a lot into my education with the great support of my parents, who also devoted substantial resources for me to attend language classes, for example, because at school we had only at the time a Russian language, which I liked as well. And I learned a lot. I enjoyed the Russian literature, but I wanted to go a step further and also experience other languages, including German, including French, including English. And then when I passed my secondary school exam, I started thinking about next steps. And of course, the next step would be to go to the university. And at that time, of course, this was the area without the internet. So it was for me very difficult to gather the information, especially when you come from a little town. But at the end, I decided to go to Warsaw and apply at the Warsaw University. And so I started my education. I studied applied linguistics and economics, also in Germany and in the UK at the end. And here an important element is that, as you know, in the beginning of the 90s, Poland started to go through the quite challenging process of political, economic, and social transition. And it's a difficult time, which it was a very difficult time. On the one hand, with a lot of fears, what will happen, how we will manage these changes, how these changes will affect our lives. And we had in my country a lot of losers of the transformation process. This period of time with was also, I would say, fulfilled with a lot of opportunities, especially for young people who were dynamic, who had dreams, who wanted to change their lives, and they saw the ways how they can seize the opportunities that arrived at that time. So I think I belong to this active and forward-looking young lady at that time, and I think I managed well. Of course, I benefited from the knowledge of languages at that time, and I managed to apply for scholarships. I studied in Germany. I did my MBA in the UK. And then I arrived at the stage when then I had to look for a job. So, and here, if you look at that time, Poland started to become a more important partner at the international stage. And we as Polish people, we saw our future in the European Union, which offered us a lot of opportunities for further development and also for partnering on international scene. So we joined NATO, and also Poland started negotiating with the European Union the accession to this organization. And at that time, I started my first job, and then afterwards I joined the European Union, the European Commission, as one of the newly recruited official from a new member state. So Poland joined the European Union on the 1st of May 2004, and then I was able to witness the accession process, but also the first year of the Polish presence in the European Union. So with the European Commission, I worked on the EU internal policies, which very much relate to the jobs and growth agenda. I worked on cohesion policy, and then I moved to the African portfolio. And I hope I succeeded in sharing our European integration experience with the African Union. So I will not go any more further on that, but this is my life experience, my experience how I grew in my own life, in my own professional career. And I learned from the mistakes. I witnessed a lot of changes. And now, looking forward, our world is changing as well. It's becoming increasingly complex, interconnected, and also contested. So I'm looking back at my experience from my childhood, from my youth, I'm also assessing my current experience, and building on that, I'm sure I would be able to contribute to building a better future as a European and as a Polish. Thank you.
Thank you, Anya, for that beautiful introduction on your own self and your life perspective. Did you see a lot of change as you grew from one stage to the other? You rightly identified 3 major stages. Did you see a lot of change in your own perspective of how you look at life, or how do you appreciate life better?
Yes, okay, I'm looking at myself, at my personal experience, I see that my life improved in in general, but also I have self-satisfaction. But I've seen a lot of changes, especially as regards the social model of life. If I draw some comparisons between my childhood, my youth at the university, and now, I see a lot of changes. I see a lot of economic changes in my environment. I see a lot of social changes. And of course, all these changes affected also my life and my perception of the global issues, of the regional issues, and of the way how my own country develops within Europe. Yeah.
You know, you have spent quite some time now in Africa. I would say about 4 or 5 years, if I remember correctly, maybe more than 5 years. And in your current position also for about 2 or 3 years. Do you see the kind of life is very different from Europe or from developing countries like India? Very innocent people, very simple lifestyle, very traditional in their culture, their dress styles and so on and so forth, but they have a very good modern outlook. The given workspace you had, I would not like you to discuss your work, but given your work profile which you have, what is that you have picked up as an individual from Africa, per se, having worked there and lived there for such a long time now?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's almost 7 years now that I'm working on the African portfolio. Not specifically on individual countries in Africa, members of the African Union, but more at the continental level. At the continental level, and all what I've said about the increasing complexity, interconnectivity, and all other global challenges that are affecting all of us, including terrorism, hybrid threats, migration, climate change, unsustainable growth as well, or even the ongoing COVID pandemic, it affects Africa as well. Perhaps in a different way, but there are a lot of similarities. We are not living anymore in silos. We are very much interconnected. And Africa is confronted with many challenges that I've mentioned, but also there are opportunities that can contribute to the opportunities that should be seized, that will probably impact the essence of life and growth that you mentioned. And for Africa, I think, but also for Europe, because we are very much interconnected. Of course, I know less Asia, India, less other continents, but I could imagine that there are a lot of commonalities. I think for me, the key elements that outline the essence of life and growth are peace and prosperity. And of course, these two terms are very much interconnected and mutually reinforcing. There is also no peace without prosperity and no prosperity without peace. And it's everywhere. It's in Asia, in Europe, in Africa. And peace, personally, because you asked me also about the personal experience, means to be in harmony with yourself and also with the others. Peace means also no war, and peace means also protection of our lives. Think about corona pandemic now. It's also to have peace, it's important, and prosperity means well-being, economic and social success. And of course, there are various definitions of these both terms, depending on our culture and history. But there are some aspects that I think are common, that are universal, and that contribute to our happiness. And happiness, I think it's an overarching term for the essence of life and growth. And for me, peace and prosperity include aspects of our common concern and desire. I'm talking about these universal values, because of course the definitions may vary. And I'm thinking here about clean environment. I'm thinking here about resilience. I'm thinking here about access to health and education, sustainable jobs, even free trade, but also other values which are very, very important, like democracy, freedom, human dignity, justice, and rule of law. Mm-hmm. And as you may see, nearly all of these aspects are covered by our common UN Sustainable Development Goals. So the agenda that we all countries agreed to. And this agenda becomes even more important now, when we are confronted with so many crises.
True. No, I agree with you. I think you beautifully laid out the key essentials, which was going to be my next question. But I also want you to speak about the fact, that I have beautiful memories from Africa. Although I was a child, but I have beautiful memories from Africa. Not only because I lived there, my father worked there, my mother was there, my family was there, but also my great-grandfather, my mother's father and mother were there, and they were Fulbright scholars teaching in Zambia, that long back, way back in 1960s. And they used to tell me as a young child about these stories, beautiful stories of families coming, living together, the social culture and all. Now, before you came into Africa, you must have had a perception about Africa. And now that you lived in Africa for 7 years, how has that perception changed for the good? What is that beautiful part of Africa which you never knew about and you have witnessed it in the last 7 years?
Mm-hmm. Yes, probably I was at that time not fully aware about the richness of this continent. A famous Polish press correspondent and writer, Kapuściński, said Africa is a big cosmos. It's you have to explore it to know it better. And probably I was not fully aware about African history, culture, about the languages. There are more than 2,000 languages in Africa, the biggest number in the world, and we have to protect them. Perhaps, I don't know whether it affects only the Europeans, but sometimes we may live in a bubble, thinking that what is happening in our close environment is the most important thing, and the whole world should be concerned by this and be aware of that. And this is not true, of course. We all our perceptions might be relative, and especially when you travel in Africa, when you work with Africans, all other challenges that you thought are the most important in the world perhaps are not. So this is my view on that. And also sometimes just coming back to the issue of the essence of life and growth. I think sometimes we think in a narrow sense about life and growth, about peace and prosperity, and we want to guarantee them within our borders, our countries, which is of course understandable. We are aiming first, in ensuring we have peace and prosperity within our borders. Whereas this desire is understandable, we should, however, not forget that our peace and prosperity, the essence of life and growth, how I see it, at home, depends on peace and prosperity beyond our borders. Because we would never find this balance in our life if we exclusively think about ourselves. We should think more, go wider. And I think Africa learned me I learned from my African experience that we have to think outside the box and engage with the others to ensure to ensure our own, what I said, peace, prosperity, security, and what is the essence of life, to better understand our essence of life, basically.
True, true. No, it's beautifully put. You put it really well, and I think I appreciate it because it's important ultimately if we don't think beyond ourselves, we really do not go and achieve the fulfillment of what life is meant for. One can always be selfish, and it is important to be selfish, but then one must look beyond. That's very important. I remember when you were speaking this, when I visited Martha's Vineyard and met Professor Franco Modigliani, who was Nobel laureate and called the father of finance, and I stayed with him at his Martha's Vineyard home. He showed me and he said, look beyond, go look, see the whole forest, all the way to the sea is my area. You need to look beyond and see how rich life is. And I think that's very important, to look beyond and see that richness of life. And Africa does give that richness. I was the other day of the African nation, a dear friend of mine who is close to you and your heart as well, shared this beautiful video. And I always love to listen to African music because it is still music in my ears, which I heard way back in the 1980s. So I always fell in love with that music and that culture. So the music sound, beautiful sound to me. And then they have shown their potential, whether it is sports or other activities. They have a lot of potential hidden, which large part of the world is not aware of. And I'm happy that you are blessed to be there and observing some of these there. Now, you know, Anya, we live in uncertain times. Lot of uncertainty all around. And it's not now because of COVID, but it's been there always. Something or the other is always uncertain. In such uncertain time, how does one go about celebrating life? How do you go about celebrating life?
How I go, sorry, because the connection was not so good. What was the question again?
How do you go about celebrating life? What is your perception of celebration of life?
The celebration of life. For me, it's important to find the peace with yourself and the internal balance with yourself and with the others. And how I'm celebrating, how I'm celebrating the life. If I see other people happy, of course, happiness is a relative term, then I'm also celebrating the life. And when people are happy when their families are happy, when they have peace, what I said, coming back to this, and when they have well-being, you know, where the prosperity and well-being are there, I think we can all celebrate, and all these values and principles are crucial nowadays, where we see a lot of uncertainties. So all these values we have to protect, and I think as humanity we achieved a lot, but we of course have to be proud of what we have achieved in terms of the socioeconomic progress and so on, but we have to protect this and probably address all these vulnerable groups that we have all over the world, so that we can guarantee sustainable development all over the globe. And in Africa, I think there are a lot of opportunities. The continent is very young. We have, I think, around 75 people below 25 years old. So it's a huge potential. There are, of course, related challenges in terms of ensuring sustainable jobs, education, health services, and so on for all these people. And young people, we are living in the area of digitalization. So more and more people, they have they have access to information, and also they have their own expectations in terms of the quality of life. So all those people young people and capable people, intelligent people. They want to develop, and they are looking for opportunities. And this is a huge potential that Africa has. And I think the answer to all these expectations, how to address this expectation, is through integration, through the continental integration. I think the African continent and the individual member states of the African Union can be stronger through integrating their economies, through integrating the systems, including infrastructure, including digital system, including education systems, health systems, and so on. And especially in recent years, I think Africa recorded a lot of progress. And now we can see how they, for example, are cooperating in addressing the COVID pandemic before the Ebola crisis with the African Disease Control Centers and other structures they have in place. And we in the European Union, of course, for us, it's a great model. It's the other union, a partner union that we have in the world. So we are there to share experience. Of course, they may develop in their own way, Africa, but we are there to share the experience of integration. And another milestone is the African Free Trade Area. And I think it's a great example of the way how the African continent can further integrate and seize the opportunities coming from all the changes. Because even in the context of the Corona pandemic, sorry for coming back again to this issue, but there are challenges for the African continent. We still don't know how the African continent will actually be affected by this pandemic, but there might be also opportunities coming after the crisis. And definitely Africa should follow on the integration path to ensure sustainable growth in the future.
You know, Anya, you have been through large number of revolutionary changes, the process of evolution. While you were in Poland, as you gave your brief history of Poland, you saw a lot of changes, democratic changes, structural changes. Then you also saw the change into market mechanism, which took place in the early 90s in Poland. And then you also witnessed this European integration process. You were part of the European integration process with the European Commission, European institutions. You know, so there has been a constant change, a structure has been there to bring in sustained growth, to shape up tomorrow. You know, trying to make a brighter and better tomorrow for every one of us who is living in that continent, or inside or even outside. How do you really see shape as a person who has lived through such times in the next 6 months to a year?
So for the next 6 months, it's it's very challenging to predict the future, and I don't know, of course, how it all will go, but of course the social structure may change, what I see, and also economic structure. We will see how international trade develops. There are the challenges, and probably digitalization will play a much stronger role than before, and it will impact our social life, but also it will impact the economic systems. Mm-hmm. What I see as one element is the global agenda. I think still that the rule-based global order with the UN as the bedrock, it's important. And we should further engage in addressing all these challenges in a multilateral way. for me, is the best way to ensure peace and security. Again, I'm coming back to this two times. It's important, and then it would be challenging to see. It's interesting to see how the global agenda will evolve. You know, the COVID pandemic may impact our perception of climate change, on the social agenda, on trade. It may impact also the political agenda and security agenda. So all these challenges, I think, have to be addressed in a multilateral way. Whether it would happen or not, of course, very, very difficult to say. So this is how I see the next 6 months. It would be interesting to observe how the global agenda will evolve and how different countries will position themselves. Of course, what we see from our European Union agenda, we are very much close to international cooperation and coordination. Without that, I think we would not be able to guarantee peace and security around the globe. And we have to engage in true partnerships, in a comprehensive way with other countries and with various stakeholders at various levels, local, national, regional, and global, as I said. So for me, the next 6 months would be about this. And perhaps after this 6 months, we would see on which path we are and how we can further define our future.
Yes. You know, Anya, you move in a group for almost now 2 decades, or I would say more, but at least for 2 decades, I have seen you personally move around with people who are influencing, people who make decisions around the globe for Europe and other parts of the world. So you have interacted with them, you have been talking with them, they're in your friend circle, professional circle. Now, you know, when a person from outside looks at it from televisions or newspapers, and especially the young generation, and even middle-aged people like me who are there, when we look at things and looking from newspapers or television, we think that life is all about power and money. What's your opinion on that? Is life all about power and money?
You know, of course, Aman, I think you are asking a provocative question because you know that the life is not about this, yeah? And I think, I don't know who are listening to us, but I think the vast majority of us would say that the life is not about power and money. Of course, we need power and money to engage with others, to help others, to support, develop, grow. Yeah, we need this, but we need a smart power. Yeah. And we need, I would say, clean money, yeah, coming from identified sources. You have to be honest, and we have to think in sustainable way, yeah. And coming back again to the values, you know, that I the beginning, that are universal. If the power and money follow our values and principles, universal principles, I'm talking here about democracy, I'm talking about human rights, I talk about legal systems. So I think we would be able to have the smart, we would be able to ensure sustainable development. So, but we need smart power. Yeah.
True. No, I agree with you. To make a difference, you certainly need both of these things if you want to make a difference and contribute to the society at large. You know, Anya, you have seen and grown, you know, in different environments, worked in different environments. What is your opinion or the success mantra you feel should one do, or you have practiced as a person for ensuring a happy tomorrow?
For me, the success mantra is to engage instead of disengage. You know,
Yes.
For me, because success mantra, of course, depends how you see the success, whether you see it at the personal level or you see it more at the professional level. But I think the success mantra is to engage instead of disengage, and also to have respect to the others.
Yes.
The respect to their identities, to their culture, to their experience as well. And I think this is the success mantra. Of course, there are various dimensions that I can explain more in detail, but I think that if we act together, if we act in unity by respecting our diversities, I think we are on the good way to success.
True, very true. You know, I wonder if you would like to reflect on something on, in India, we talk a lot about it, and it's being talked about in the world also lately, since this corona pandemic has started, is about spirituality, about meditation, about self-consciousness. Do you think any one of these three things or all of them together do contribute in one's understanding the meaning and the essence of life and growth?
You mean the self-confidence?
No, one is spirituality. Spirituality is not about religion. Spirituality, meditation, and soul consciousness, your own consciousness. Do these three things in any way you think have any reflection on one?
I don't understand the first thing you mentioned, because you said medication, self-consciousness, and the first one?
No, not medication. Spirituality.
Yes, spirituality.
Yes. Second, meditation. Meditation.
Meditation. Okay.
Is soul consciousness.
Yes, soul consciousness. Okay, now I understand better. Okay. You know, it's very much culture related, I think, very much. And I have full respect for that. And what I said at the beginning about our values, about our principles, and about the balance that we can find in ourselves internally, but also with the others, this internal peace. I said, you know, peace is not war, but also it's our internal peace, that we are in peace with ourselves, what we are doing, and we are doing our best. We are delivering on the objectives that we believe in to the best extent possible, and we are in peace with the others by respecting their values, their expectations, and we try to engage together to create a better world. Sorry, this is perhaps very high, but I think this is about meditation. It's about spirituality as well. It's about your belief and about your moral framework. And I think we as humans, we have a lot of similarities on how our moral framework is structured. And I think we should stick to it, and we should protect our human moral framework.
Very well, beautiful. You know, I have two more questions before I open the house for other questions to be asked. And I will request whoever wants to ask a question to kindly raise your hand so that I can open your video and audio towards the end. And my last two questions. One is that since you are in government policy framework, and since you mentioned about happiness, there is a lot of focus by various governments on happiness. UK has a Ministry of Loneliness, then Sweden has one wanting to induce happiness. I remember Sarkozy giving a project to Amartya Sen, Nobel laureate Amartya Sen, of developing a happiness index. Bhutan, as you would know, has happiness as part of their GDP growth. Now, how could governments create frameworks or structures to induce happy living? Because ultimately, the happiness which is important for every one of us, whether we earn 1 rupee or €1 or $1 or 1 million. If we are not able to get that happiness out of it, it is of no use, in my opinion. So what could governments do, in your opinion? Not one country, but in general, what could governments do to induce? It's not a pill. Happiness is not like a pill that one can give and one will get happy. But then they could create frameworks, they could create structures. You are in that framework of creating structures, alliances, togetherness. So what do you think the governments could do in this way, in this process?
In the current challenging times, I think we will be confronted with a social change that I referred to. I think this social change can come from many places with many influences. And I think a key task for any government is to ensure that these emerging social forms that may come after this crisis, that these social forms, that they come from an ethic that values care, life, and democracy. I'm not talking here necessarily about the economic growth and the indexes, but first of all, I'm talking about ethics, about the ethics values care, life, and democracy. And the central political task for the governments in this time would be to organize the society around these values and the support all the social initiatives that would probably appear and they would develop, including the youth initiatives.
Correct. And from that, I will catch on to my last question, which is, what is your advice to the youth, young, beautiful girls like you and young, beautiful boys like me, and younger ones who are there in Africa and rest of the world? What's your advice to them in terms of leading a happy, peaceful, prosperous, and comfortable life? What should we all do?
Of course, young, old are relative terms. Some people say you are as young as you feel young.
Yes.
So I don't know, but of course, if you have more experience, probably you have also more opportunities, or know how to manage your compass in your hand. You know which way to go because you have this compass, and maybe many people they don't have. But about the compass, I think sometimes this value that I was talking about, this is our compass that we have in our hand, and we should go this way. But for young people, I think I have two words, not only for young people, but also for perhaps for the governments and for the people in power, how to engage with the youth, and for the youth, how to be proactive. I think first is engage, what I said, then connect, and the third word is empower. And for the engagement, I think we have to engage young people, youth organizations, and so on in policies affecting the lives of young people, but also the lives in general of the societies at all levels, and also support the youth organizations. Connect, I think, anyway, young people in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, anyway, they are getting more and more connected through the development of digitalizations. And this is important for building relations, to learn from each other, to exchange experience. And this is a pivotal asset of solidarity and also the future development. And this, connectivity, I think, is best fostered through different forms of mobility that we, of course, in the European Union support, like the students' mobility, cultural mobility. And now, of course, mobility will be challenged with the corona pandemic, but I think it will not stop because it's very human. People are mobile and they want to be mobile, not static. And
Yes.
The last issue is the empowerment of young people online.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry, I was
Go on. I can hear
interrupted
you.
by another phone.
Yes. Yes.
So empowerment, it's important to empower young people to facilitate their participation in the political life, in various socioeconomic organizations, youth organizations, and so on. And we have, of course, good practice examples how we manage to empower various youth organizations across Europe and across Africa, and jointly together. So I think I have these three messages: engage, connect, and empower.
Sure. Thank you. Now I will open up the house. I have Professor Rekha Jagannathan. She is the former member of the Karnataka State Planning Board. It is one of the apex planning boards in India. Like we have Planning Commission or Niti Aayog now. So in India, we have in every state a planning board which looks after the planning and development of the country. So we have Professor Rekha Jagannathan, and I'll be unmuting her to maybe ask her question, comment. Just a second, Professor Jagannathan.
Hello, good evening, Dr. Amman. Hi, Anna, how are you? Very nice meeting you, actually. I feel very impressed with your profile because in the beginning you said you're summarizing your life. You can divide your life into childhood, into life in which you studied, and then your professional life. It sounded as though you're giving an Indian version of your life. We also divide our life that way traditionally. We call it as childhood, brahmacharya, grihastha, which is household life, and then go into the forest as elderly. Now, it sounded very familiar. But then, as I heard you later, I found that you are a very empowered woman, a dynamic and empowered woman who has grown every bit of it. You have grown in Poland, studying so hard, and then moving out of Poland into Africa, where it must have been totally different for you, from European Union to Africa. And then your international exposure is very, very impressive. I wish I had that much of international exposure. But then I did have a chance to go to Poland, and then in 80s, when I was told that it is totally war-torn and then unstable, and nobody advised me to go there. They asked me to drop it. I was supposed to go on a fellowship. I don't know how it is now. I'm also curious about Russia-Poland relationship, because India is very friendly with Russia. Indo-Russian relationship is actually full of stories. And I'm very, very curious about how Poland relates to Russia. You didn't tell us anything about it. And the other one is what you think about India within ourselves. What do you think we are? You have met Dr. Aman Agarwal, who is a very humane person. But then, have you had any other exposure at all? And then it was very nice to hear that you all are very Africa friendly, fans of Africa. Everywhere I hear a lot of beautiful things about Africa, and everyone feels like going away to Africa itself. Is it all that beautiful, or how are the human beings struggling over there? I would like to know these things from you, a bit more about it, although you did tell quite a lot of things. Anna?
Yes, thank you for your questions. you know, also when I was assigned to Africa, and I was preparing myself to take up my duties in Addis Ababa, many of my friends were asking me, "Oh, are you not afraid? What are you doing?" And especially my friends in Poland, because sometimes we don't know even our closest neighbors. And of course, if you don't know the neighbors, you are very close to develop stereotypes.
Yeah.
Because you can avoid developing stereotypes if you have more knowledge, if you are better educated, and especially about other countries. Yeah, if you know the countries, you enjoy this.
Feel better.
If people don't know, they start to develop fears and stereotypes. Yeah, and this is, I think, still present in Europe, in some countries. Of course, I'm generalizing here because it always depends on the person and the level of education, the level of experience. And the media play a crucial role in this, how they present their country, their continents and experience. Coming now to your questions about Poland and Russia. So we are very much interested. We are to have a Slavic, we speak Slavic languages, and our history is very much interrelated, interconnected, our culture as well. With Poland joining the European Union, so our foreign policy, our trade policy is very much structured within the framework of the European Union, and we are engaging with Russia within this framework. There are a lot of links, a lot of people-to-people contacts, business-to-business contacts, and important is looking into the future to build a strong political dialogue with Russia and to further strengthen our economic links, because we are the closest. So we have also a joint border with Russia, close to the Kaliningrad district. And we can not, sorry, there is a cut of electricity in Addis Ababa, but I hope you can see.
It's okay, you still shine.
Now the electricity is back. So and, I think we as Poland, the European Union, can not develop, we cannot guarantee peace in Europe, in the wider neighborhood, without Russia. So this is our neighbor. India is a bit farther away than Russia, and for us how I see India. India is an important regional player in Asia. It's very important considering the size of the population, the economic power, but also the relations with the neighbors. So very much, I think the world should rely on India when it comes to solving any crisis on the continent. India is an important partner at the UN. So without India, again, we cannot have global peace and security. And I see more and more India's presence in Africa. Of course, China is predominant, but I see more and more India is a traditional nation of traders. And you brought a lot of richness to the African continent as well. So not only Europe through our difficult history, also with Africa, looking at especially looking at the times of colonialism. Of course, not all European countries are concerned by this by past development. Europe, of course, has a lot of historical links with Africa, but India as well, looking at Mauritius, for example, but also Zambia, recently visited a few times. So I think we can jointly we can cooperate and engage with our African partners. And the last question was about Africa as such. I don't remember what yeah, but I think I answered the question on Africa.
I just wanted to know more about, I still want to know more about what you feel about African people. Is it just the resources that you are attracted to, or the kind of people they are, their culture, and how you mix with the people over there? You spoke about connecting with people. So what is the speciality of Africa? Are they like Poland and India, or I've heard that they are very less religious than us all. We are stuck to Asia particularly, and Indians are very much stuck with religion, and Africa is not, because their religious ideas are not so very conservative as Indians, it is said. My exposure to Africa is through my relatives who have been ambassadors there, but then personally I know very less. That's why, because you've been there for such a long time, I thought I'd ask you.
Yes, as I said,
the people of Africa.
Yeah, Africa is, sorry.
Are the people very happy? Some portions of Africa are known to be the happiest countries. So are they very happy in spite of their own issues? They have many challenges, but then are they happy? Are they friendly to outsiders, or do they shun away from humans? What are they like?
Yes, Africa, as I've said, it's a huge cosmos. I would say, I'm using the word of the Polish writer.
Cosmos, you said.
It's very extremely diversified. I know India is very diversified, but I think Africa even more. It's very difficult to talk in terms of the continent, how the people are. And I do not position myself in terms of describing this, because I think I don't have the capacity and I think I don't have enough experience. But the countries, even not the continent, but even the countries are very much diversified.
Yes.
What people they like the freedom very much as other nations. So I don't know. They are not different from other nations. They freedom, justice, and of course, as other countries, they are also confronted with challenges. But it's a very rich continent in terms of culture, and the people. If you express interest, if you're able to show respect to their culture, I think they would reply to that with a lot of with an open heart, with the kindness. And this is also how I approach people, and this is my assumption in all cases when I meet people in Africa. And they have their own dreams, they have expectations, especially young people, and they are not so much different from other young people in Europe or in India. We are living in a globalized world.
Yes.
And asked about regions, the continent is also very much diversified, and it depends on the country, but we have all possible religions on the continent. And I think Africa is a religious continent, and as you know, the religion brings a lot of values to the culture as well, and to our moral framework that I referred to. That's why we have to find these commonalities in our moral frameworks to be able to deal with future challenges, with the change of our model of life, perhaps. And I think the changes are coming, and we have to stick to our human values, to our moral framework, and we would be able to work further, to cooperate in ensuring the economic growth and so on, the quality of life. But I think the value for humanity is the most important element. in the discussion.
My last question would be about your beautiful statement that peace and prosperity within borders is determined by peace and prosperity beyond the borders, which we usually tell the students when we start international business lessons. Now, that is ultimate actually, and which has been forgotten in case of this present pandemonium. If this was taken care, maybe we wouldn't have virus in all the countries of the world. That's one aspect. But then you have grown with European Union, the beginnings of European Union, and then we have come down to Brexit situation where Britain herself has gone down in status. Now, what is likely to be the prospective? I think it's just the repetition of what Dr. Raman Agarwal asked you. Next 6 months, not 6 months, but then what do you think will happen to European Brexit situation was almost the splitting of European Union. But then now entire Europe is almost coming down, and Britain, the Queen of Europe, has come down. And then what do you think will happen in the next few years, at least? Having been born in Poland, in European Union, what do you think will happen in the next coming months or at least years?
She's wanting to know about the Brexit. How would the Brexit fall?
Yeah.
So no,
Brexit stopped, and then Britain started.
Yes, thank you for this question. So the European Union actually was built because we needed peace in Europe after the Second World War. And it was the whole idea, you know, to avoid any wars in the future. And then our political leaders decided to join some of the crucial industries that were crucial for building arms, like coal and steel, and those industries under the common administration of the countries. And this is how the institutions were created, based on common values and principles that I referred earlier on. So, and then the European Union, earlier the European Economic Communities, we went through various crises during that time, but we developed a framework that became attractive for the countries to join or stay in. But the European Union is the union of member states. They are willing to continue on this integration agenda. And this integration agenda brought also prosperity to the European Union, not only peace, but also prosperity. By the way, the European Union was awarded a Nobel Peace Prize in 2012 for, you know, moving from the continent of war to the continent of peace. I would add also prosperity. But of course, you know, my parents, my grandparents, they remember the Second World War. I don't remember it. I remember this only from family discussions. Even younger people than me, they don't remember it. And they probably considered, they took the peace and prosperity as granted. And it's not the case, because we have to protect these values. We have to protect peace and prosperity. It's not granted forever, you know, and we have to work on it. What I think the European Union in the past has always come strengthened after the crisis. And I think if you consider a Brexit as a crisis, but you know, you should see it as well as an opportunity. And by the way, each member state of the European Union has the right to leave the European Union if this organization doesn't seem to be attractive anymore. So we have to work on it to make the union attractive for the member states to stay in. But of course, member states are free to leave the European Union under certain conditions that have been still negotiated. And I think the current crisis, we can come even stronger from the current crisis because member states demonstrated a lot of solidarity, and we are very much engaged on the global agenda, other partners, how to manage the post-COVID situation, and we see a lot of opportunities as well. So I think this is on the European Union, and my country benefited a lot from the membership in the European Union. And of course, the debate will always be there because we are democratic countries and democratic societies, and people can express their views. And I think if we take various views, positive and negative, constructive way, can only create an added value, and this is how we develop and grow, and how we can, and this is also how we constantly improve. If you look at the integration agenda, we started with the free trade, but now we are at the single market. This is on the economic agenda, how we develop. And of course, it was not an easy way. You know, it was not an easy way. And we're confronted with a lot of criticism, but at the end, this is how we succeeded by bringing all the interest and all the contributions from various member states together.
Thank you, Anya.
Thank you, Anna. You have very beautiful views of life, and your essence of life is very Indian in nature. Wish you all the very best. Very nice meeting you. Thank you, Dr. Anna Burylo.
I wish you also all the best.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Jagannathan. I have another pearl of my heart. You know, she is a beautiful pearl in my heart and in my family. I have another pearl of my heart joined us today, and we will have him for a session, an extensive session, and I'll grill him like anything because that's my job, you know, and he knows it very well because he studied with me in Columbia, and he knows I was given this title of asking so many questions to professors. I used to make my professor's life hell by asking one after the other so many questions, and he knows it very well. I still have that framed gift which was given to me by my classmates, including him, as the one who keeps asking questions and questions and questions. And I am going to have this chance to ask him questions and questions and questions. But I thought to have him here with me because both of them are jewels of my heart. They're very close to me. Whether we speak every day or do not speak every day, we are a true family. And I am pleased to have him. I thought I'd bring him in for a second. He is now going to be ambassador, and I wish to see both of them. I would love to see Anya to be a cabinet minister in Poland or be a member of parliament in the European Parliament soon. And let me tell you, Anya, this Africa exposure will ensure you this position because Africa, as by various agencies have been outlined, would be a place for motion in the next decade, a place which people will thrive for in the next decade. Large number of reports for the last 20 years have come out focusing that. And I can assure you with your knowledge and experience of Africa, you are going to have a very strong position. Either if you don't want to still stay in Belgium only, then in the European Parliament for sure. And if you want to go back home in Poland, then for sure in the Cabinet of Ministers. And I'm looking forward for that day because then I will come and stay with you even for longer periods. And in any case, I have this dear friend Jacek Jankowski with me now. And I like him if we can make a brief comment before we end the session for today. Just a brief comment, Jacek.
Thank you very much, Professor Aman Agarwal, our chair. Thank you very much, Deputy Ambassador Anna and other colleagues. And I'm very pleased to say that it's very enriching discussion, yeah, because it's not only about power, about financial power, but also about values. And it's very important to strike this balance in our life between the values and financial and job-related successes, yeah, because the more we reach, the more we should think about others and about values. We live for something in this world, yeah. We live to live our fingerprints, yeah, and this is more about values. So it's more about the other dimension of our life, yeah. So, and I was very pleased to listen to this discussion, which you both, our chair and our guest speaker, tried to find this balance about between the economic / power success and the values, yeah, because at the end it's about the values, yeah. And I must say, the older I am, the more I appreciate also the second step, yeah, because when we are reached, when we're young, when we're young, we just think about today, even not maybe too much about tomorrow, but when we get some experience, you know, our center of gravity changes a little bit, yeah. So it was very, very well structured and very enriching discussion, and thank you very much for letting me in and for giving me this opportunity to be a witness of this discussion. And good night to India, to Delhi, yeah, because it's, I think it's almost evening, yeah. It's 7 o'clock in Africa, in Zambia, but I think it's around 10 o'clock, yeah, or yeah, around 10 o'clock, even after 10 maybe in Delhi, yeah.
Thank you, Atsik, and thank you, Anya.
Thanks a lot.
Close. I have a small thing to do for tomorrow. We have another young guest tomorrow, Vikas Raj, who has been an alumni of the Institute. He's currently heading the IDFC Asset Management. He was also the CEO of the IDFC Pension Fund. He's been a student of mine in our institution from 96-98 batch. So we will have him tomorrow with us on the same program of Essence of Life and Growth at 9 p.m. And then we have 2 technical sessions on how to do research. Financial planning tips, we have 2 sessions which are there on the use of active finance and A to Z of technical analysis tomorrow as well. And with that, I would like to thank everyone for being with me. Namaskar and Vande Mataram. Thank you, Anya. God bless.
Thank you very much. Greetings. Bye.